Studies show that when students have access to free school meals, they do better in school. Attendance rates go up, behavior incidents go down, kids are overall healthier, happier, and ready to learn. In fact, for every dollar our country invests in school meal programs, we get more than $2 back in health and economic benefits annually. When neighbors are struggling, it's our responsibility to lend them a helping hand. As a public servant, I use my faith as a guide to show me what's right, and helping to feed hungry kids is unequivocally morally right. Every major faith in the world commands its followers to share food with the hungry. My own faith teaches me, if you spend yourselves in behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in darkness. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Last week, I traveled to gas stations across New York and spoke with hardworking New Yorkers about the cost of living crisis that they're experiencing as a result of President Trump's reckless policies. The reality is, working families are being crushed by this economy. Gas prices in New York are higher than they've ever been in years because of the president's war with Iran. At the same time, rapidly worsening inflation is driving up the cost of everything from household utilities to the weekly grocery bill. That's putting a real strain on families' budgets. Right now, parents across America are being forced to make difficult choices about how to feed their kids. Do they fill up the gas tank to get to work and school, or do they buy food to fill the fridge? Do they pay the utility bill on time, or take on debt to keep food on the table? Do they break the bank to buy fresh meat and produce, or opt for cheaper but less nutritious options? These choices were made even more dire by the Trump administration's $186 billion cut to SNAP in last year's Republican tax bill. SNAP, as we know, is a lifeline for nearly 3 million New Yorkers, including children, seniors, and working families. Trump and congressional Republicans slashed this benefit so they could give the wealthiest Americans tax cuts. In the richest country in the world, it's a moral failure. By doubling down on these cruel cuts while prices skyrocket, the Trump administration is letting American kids go hungry. My Universal School Meals Program Act would help provide much-needed relief to working families. This legislation would guarantee free breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack for all school children, taking the cost of meals during the school week off the table for families' budgets. It would do this permanently and regardless of a family's ability to pay. This would mean one less impossible calculation for working parents every single week. And it would help guarantee that every child in New York has access to nutritious meals, no matter their zip code or their family's financial situation. This would provide a huge benefit to New York students. Studies show that when students have access to free school meals, they do better in school. Attendance rates go up, behavior incidents go down, kids are overall healthier, happier, and ready to learn. In fact, for every dollar our country invests in school meal programs, we get more than $2 back in health and economic benefits annually. That's a huge return on investment that keeps our economy, our kids, and our future strong. When neighbors are struggling, it's our responsibility to lend them a helping hand. As a public servant, I use my faith as a guide to show me what's right, and helping to feed hungry kids is unequivocally morally right. Every major faith in the world commands its followers to share food with the hungry. My own faith teaches me, if you spend yourselves in behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in darkness. As lawmakers, it is our responsibility to make sure that our constituents have the resources they need to thrive, and that starts with being able to put food on the table. In a moment of immense economic pain for far too many, this legislation will provide real, tangible relief and help make sure that every student has enough to eat. It's critical legislation, and I'm determined to get it passed. Thank you. Happy to start with on-topic questions.
Brian O'Neill, WLEA.
Okay,
Brian O'Neill.
Yep, go ahead, Brian. Can you hear me?
Yes. Any thoughts on how late in the day students would be able to get dinner at school?
I don't know, but I would hope they'd be fed at 5 o'clock because that's when they're hungry. But I don't know. Do you guys know?
Thank you.
How late it goes? Yeah. The real good thing, Brian, you know, being a mom of school age kids, they need to eat. If they have sports practice from 3 to 4 or 3 to 5, they need to eat as soon as they're done. Like, they're hungry, hungry, hungry. And if the food you feed them isn't a bag of potato chips and isn't a bag of sweets, they're going to do so much better because there's nutrition they need. It fuels their muscles. It fuels their growth. So I would suspect most schools would pick a time right when the kids need the food, which is when they get off the fields or off the practices that they're doing.
Thank you.
Who else has a question? Anything on topic? All right, happy to take off topics.
Brian O'Neill.
Go ahead, Brian.
Some people are discovering, and I'm one of them because of Ancestry.com and other websites, ancestors who were in World War II, World War I,
Oh.
I didn't even know about. Is it possible for them to get, I don't know, maybe posthumous medals for these sorts of ancestors?
Probably not. The ability to get a posthumous medal, you have to be a direct family member, so you'd have to be a son. I don't think grandson or great-grandson or great-great-great-grandson will be sufficient. But there's no reason why you shouldn't try. So, like, if you are related to somebody who did great things, I would definitely reach out to the DOD about, you know, can we get recognition of this great leader from times before. You never know what they're willing to accommodate, but I think the rules are you have to be an immediate family member.
Thank you.
Hi, Senator. Ryan Zenner from BTPM NPR in Buffalo.
Hi, Ryan.
Had a question about your thoughts on the Trump legal settlement with the IRS. He dropped that lawsuit with the IRS, creating that fund with overseen by a board appointed by him, as well as the condition that his past taxes and families aren't looked at. You know, what are your initial thoughts on sort of that and any possible action that could happen in Congress if there are any remedies?
So it's a shining example of the grift and corruption of the Trump administration. He literally is getting a slush fund to pay his buddies and his friends and people he likes. He's been on this retribution tour since he was reelected, and it's not only unethical and likely illegal, it just again shows that this president is bought and paid for and wants to pay off his allies. It's disgusting. It's immoral, and we will try to lift up our concerns as aggressively as possible in the hopes of winning over some Republicans, because if we could have bipartisanship on this issue, hopefully we can limit how this fund is actually implemented.
Thank you.
Senator Gillibrand, Sarah Darmanjan from News Channel 13. Just wanted to ask you about the $40.5 million that you've secured to combat PFAS contamination in New York. Can you tell us a little bit about how this came about and what the money is going to be used for?
So PFAS, as you know, is a forever chemical that has been linked to cancers, other disease, and it's very harmful to vulnerable populations. It can be deadly. And so getting money for cleanup will be in the communities where we have documented PFAS pollution. We have a lot of PFAS pollution around our military sites because we used to train our military personnel on firefighting with firefighting foam that had PFAS in it. So we get money specifically to do that. And then the rest of the money is from the bipartisan infrastructure law that we passed, because nobody wants PFAS in their state and everybody wants to clean this up because it harms everybody. Any other off topics? All right, if you have any other questions, just let our team know. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining. Today I want to share with you what I'm hearing from New Yorkers across our state. Working families are struggling. People are frustrated, anxious, and fed up because they are paying the price for a crisis they did not create every time they fill up their cars with gas or buy fuel to heat their homes. The average cost of gas in New York is almost 50% higher today than it was this time a year ago. In some parts of our state, regular gas is over $5 a gallon. The worst part is this pain was completely avoidable. It's a direct result of President Trump's war with Iran. By starting this war, President Trump threatened global energy supplies and gambled with the financial security of every single American. Now, every drive is a strain on New Yorkers' budgets. Every commute to work, every ride to a doctor's appointment, every carpool to school costs 50% more than it did just a year ago. That is absurd, and it's a fundamental threat to our economic stability of our state and our country. Earlier this week, the Department of Labor released a report on consumer prices. I won't sugarcoat it. The numbers are dismal. Inflation is at its highest level in 3 years. And for the first time in years, wages are not keeping pace with inflation. This is a hidden double tax on New York families. Inflation is stripping away Americans' purchasing power, making essentials like gas and groceries and heat unaffordable for far too many. At the same time, it's making every aspect of our supply chain cost more. Transportation costs more. The diesel that powers farm equipment costs more. And the raw materials needed to make almost every item that you buy cost more. That drives up the cost of consumers up even further, and it means working families are having to stretch every dollar just to make ends meet. Make no mistake, the American people do not want President Trump's war. They want lower costs. I hear it from New Yorkers every day who want the president focused on serving Americans here at home, not dropping bombs across the world. Constituents from across New York have shared how much they're paying for gas, and it's truly astonishing. $61 for less than half a tank, purchased by a retiree in rural central New York. $67 for less than a tank of gas for her car, paid for by a nurse in the capital region. Over $500 for a fuel oil delivery to fill just a third of a heating tank for a senior in the North Country. President Trump must end this war immediately and lower costs for consumers. We can't afford to prioritize his illegal war over the stability of our own economy. I'm calling on the administration to stop the escalation, return to the path of diplomacy, and provide real relief to families who are bearing the brunt of rising prices here at home. New Yorkers are doing their part. They work hard, they play by the rules, and they take care of their neighbors. It's time for President Trump to do the same. I will not stop fighting until we bring the prices down and provide real relief to New Yorkers. Thank you. We have time for on-topic questions.
Brian O'Neill, WLEA.
Hi, Ryan.
Hi there. The Energy Information Agency website says that America gets a lot of oil from both the U.S. and Canada. When I've asked different people why the price of gas has gone up so much, the answer is because it's a global market. Is there a specific country or organization in the global market responsible for the price of gas?
Well, most of the Middle Eastern countries are oil producers, and because of the war, the Straits of Hormuz have been shut, and so they can't distribute the oil that they would have sent anywhere around the globe right now. So everyone's costs are rising because it's a global market. And even for getting our oil from Canada or getting it domestically, those pressures of transportation, those pressures of what's happening in the Middle East are all affecting the price.
Thank you.
Hey, Senator, this is Rachel Knapp with WENY News, DC Bureau. So ahead of the president's trip to China, he told reporters essentially that he doesn't really care about Americans' financial stress when it comes to striking a deal with Iran. Just wanted to get your thoughts and comments on his comments.
It just shows how out of touch the president is right now. He doesn't understand that the American people do not want this war. He didn't come to Congress to talk to us about it, which is the normal way, and he never showed that we were actually at risk. So the American people aren't fools. We're not at risk. They weren't going to bomb us. We didn't have to defend the country in some meaningful way. And so they're frustrated that this president is really waging this war on his own without the consent of the American people, driving their costs up. He promised to be a peacetime president. He promised that foreign wars were something he wasn't going to get involved in, and he's done the exact opposite. He promised to get costs down for groceries and housing and food and everything else, and he's not. And so people are angry and they're frustrated that he's involved in a war that's driving up their costs so high and spending $1 billion a day on bombs that they didn't ask for or we don't need.
Thank you. I do have one off topic, if that's possible.
So does anybody else have an on topic? My day's been a terrible, as you know, we had to change the time of this, so we don't have much more time.
Yes, Senator Terry Frank in Jamestown. Just had a quick question about Senator Durbin was on the other day talking about the gasoline tax, federal tax, possibly being suspended because of the gas situation. How do you feel about that?
So historically and in general, I support getting gas prices to be lower. And in these urgent times of crisis, while I appreciate the money that we actually get from the gas tax to make sure we have clean air and clean water, in a time of crisis, it's appropriate to suspend the gas tax.
Thank you.
Anybody else have an on topic? We can do off topics later. Just let my staff know you have them. Thank you.